but let me look. I'll have to look that up. Okay, let us learn something about Purim. All right. So the content of the story of the Megillah and all of the details of the story and the miracle of Purim and the setting of the holiday, that it should be a simcha, a joy, that it should be a mishteh, a festive meal, and a holiday for all generations, as it says in the end of the Megillah. And the term is hayamim ha'eleh, these days, niskarim v'nasim, should be remembered, like from the words zachor, to remember, v'nasim, and be remade, redone, relived in every generation. And v'zichram, and its memory of the story of Purim, Yosef Mizarim, shall never be forgotten from the Jewish people. So that's what the verse is. Therefore, it's important that the story and all of its details is integral. So the story of, in the beginning, Therefore, in the story, we need to delineate how Haman came to Achashverosh, Haman the wicked, came to Achashverosh the king, right? And how he was able to triumph over the king, that he should be in agreement to make a decree against the Jewish people. Such a terrible decree that never existed, to destroy the entire Jewish people, because in that time, all the Jewish people were under the Persian dominance from Haidu until Kush, from India until Ethiopia. And it was a decree, minar, from a lad, not zaken, till the elders, taf benashim, little children and women. Everybody was included in this decree. And afterwards, of course, the miracle. That's integral to the entire story. How, in other words, Esther was able to nullify the evil decree through her efforts with King Achashverosh, until ultimately there was the nullifying of the decree, that it was transformed. What was transformed? That we were able to overcome the Jews over our enemies. And as the verse says, as the fear of the Jewish people fell upon the people. And further, as the verse says, La Yudim Haitza'ora, we say every Friday, Saturday night by Havdalah, for the Jewish people there was light, V'simcha and joy, V'soson and gladness, V'yikar and beauty. Right? To such a degree. In other words, that's what occurred, right? And after this, what does the Megillah further say? Esther wrote, Mordechai Yehudi, that the strength of the story, that and the powerful incident that occurred, Lekayem Yemei HaPurim, that we should fulfill these days of Purim in those days, in our time, for all generations. Right? Now we get, however, but when we begin the whole story of the Megillah, where does it begin? How does it start? We see something that is actually extraordinary. And what is that? The Megillah starts a whole lengthy ordeal and a narrative about King Achashverosh, that he, again, king from Hoidu. Hoidu is India, until Kush, Ethiopia, 127 provinces, right? That he made a party. How long did he make a party? He made a party for 180 days. And at that party, and this is in the simple meaning of the text, right? He showed the great wealth, his great honor, his great fortune at it, right? And after 180 days of partying, right? I guess it was pre-COVID. Right? He made another 7 days in the capital. Shushan was the capital. And there it goes into a very lengthy detailing of all of the, the wealth and the beauty that was there. Now, seemingly all these details are not at all important to the whole story of the miracle of Purim. Why is it written in the Megillah? What do we need it for? The Gemara tells us in Megillah, the Talmud, there are many different opinions of where it is obligatory to hear the story. And one of the opinions is that you have to start by the heart of the miracle, right? And that night, the king couldn't sleep, and he had the books of the kingdom read to him, right? And that's when he found out Mordecai did him a great favor and saved his life, all right? And which means that everything that happened before that is not really an element that's important to be read, that we need to fulfill the mitzvah. So quite clearly. So just strengthening the question, why do we need to know about the party? Why do we need all the details about the party? And the question becomes even stronger, that when we understand that in Torah, every word, every letter is very meduyuk, is very exacting. To the fact that we learn many things and many halachas from sometimes even a letter. We can learn out several laws. So if that's the case in our story in the Megillah, what is this? This has to be somehow connected to the whole theme of the Megillah, the whole idea of the miracle of the salvation of the Jewish people. How does this fit in? Another important question to ask. Torah, we know, comes from the word horah, which means a guide, a lesson in our lives, meaning that all matters of Torah are supposed to be a lesson for the Jew and how to serve God. So from this, it's understood that all of the details that are brought in the Megillah are part of Torah, meaning they for sure have a lesson. In other words, what's important over here when we say that Torah is a lesson, when you read a book, a regular book, right? Is every line a lesson? No. Every line is part of the narrative. And if it's a good author, the author will write every line that you could see the succession of every line, every paragraph, every page, every chapter, how that goes into the next part of the narrative, and everything is tight, right? That it ties in. It's not like, just, an idea over here that has no bearing or no fitting in with the narrative. But it's only about following the narrative ultimately. And that's how our minds think, right? That when we're hearing a narrative, that it's, how is this succinct in the narrative? So the first question that Eb is asking is, how is this in the narrative? Like in reading a regular book. So we understand, Esther going to the king is part of the narrative. Oh, that's save the Jews. We understand that Haman taking 10,000 silver coins and bribing the king so he can make a decree. We get that, but we don't get how this is part of the narrative, his big party and all the details. But now the Rebbe is going a step further. Not that this is a part of, a succinct story that, has a tie-in, but Torah means Horah. It's a lesson. It's not just a lesson at the end of the story. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, what do you take out of this? What did you gain from this? What do you learn from this? Of course, we need to understand, a general principle that we gain at the end. But that's not Torah. That's any book, any idea. You need a idea that you learn from and to take home. What's your take home from this? But here, Torah is Horah, and the Rebbe takes us. And the Rebbe is very, I don't know what the word is, emphatic or very, the full 9 yards. In other words, every word has to be that way. Every line has to be that way. Every part of the story has to be a lesson. Can't be just that it's a collective whole and I take a lesson from the end. So we need to know what's the lesson from the previous part that we just mentioned. But even further, at the end of the story, that was at the beginning, we need to know what the lesson is. But at the end of the whole Megillah, it says that Achashverosh, he placed taxes upon the people and upon all of the lands and further, and all the outlying areas. What am I learning from that? What do I need to understand that for? Furthermore, right? And then Rebbe takes us even a step further. That the Megillah, the story of the Megillah, as the Rambam is in his halachic authority of Yad Chazaka, he says that all of the books of the prophets and of the writings will ultimately, the term he uses will be nullified in the times of Mashiach. Chassidus explains nullified doesn't mean that they won't exist, but like a candle, right? Like a candle in the sun doesn't give that much light. Likewise, those books of the prophets will be like a candle in the sun because the light of Mashiach and the light of God will be so clear that it's not going to give so much light. That's what Chassidus, right? But it says that, but Rambam, what he says, that all of them will be nullified in the times of Mashiach except for one book. Guess which one? The Megillah. Megillah's Esther. And what is the Rambam? Where does he get this idea from? From the Megillah. What does it say in the Megillah? Yemei Purim Eila, these days of Purim, lo yavru mitecha Yudim, that they will not pass by or be, pass over. Excuse the wrong holiday, but pass by, pass over, right? Meaning like be passing and gone, so to speak, from the Jewish people. V'zichron Yasav Mizarim, and their memory will not be lost to the Jewish people. So from this, the Rambam says, we learn that the Megillah will be, even in the times of Mashiach, will also be relevant. It won't just be like a candle in the sunlight. It'll be much more an illumination in times, right, even then. So if that's the case, we need to understand that the beginning of the story, as we mentioned, about Achashverosh being such a king, right? Such a king from Hoida until Cush, and about the parties and so on. And at the end of the story, where he placed the taxes upon the people. What are we learning from that? So the story of the Megillah and all of its details, all of the details that we seemingly don't find a connection to the miracle, which is, again, the whole point of the Megillah, comes to teach us an important, powerful lesson that's connected with our personal lives today. So that begins like this. It says, when a thinking person starts to think, that might be an oxymoron, like a thinking person stops to think. A thinking person doesn't stop thinking, important things. So when you think about your life and your being, right? And you stop to think that, we know we didn't make ourselves. We know that there's a creator. We didn't make ourselves, There's a God who created the world, created me. And since God created the world, he didn't create anything that is an extra. Remember our dear friend Morty used to be our dear friend Morty Berkovich. So he would be an extra on in motion pictures here that were made in Montreal. So I was telling Morty, in Hollywood, you're an extra. But in Chabad, for God Almighty, you're not extra. You're essential. Not an extra. You're essential. Why? Why are you essential? Because God doesn't create something that is levatala, that's not needed. That's just a superfluous, an extra. You're essential. So everything has a purpose. Everything has, and not just a purpose, but ultimately an essential purpose, right? I mean, that's anything, again, any thinking person is going to come to that realization. However, that's not so simple when you think about it. Why? Because when you start to think about the details of your life, and here we're not talking about the Beinoni, thinking about how much, how much am I exerting myself, and I want to humble my evil inclination. I just think about, in general, the idea. You're going to come to a realization that most of the time of my day that God has given me, not that I've not used it appropriately, but are really things that are not so valuable. And yet he wants me to engage in them, right? He wants me to engage in them. Think about it. When you see a human being is very different than every animal. Every animal, I've seen a calf being born, and the calf that's born, I don't remember how much time, but it's not a short time afterwards that they can get up on their own 2 feet and, hey, they got a life, right? They got a life. Not so for us. I don't know if it's several hours later. I just don't remember. I think it's several hours later or something like that. They get up on their 2 feet and then they can move around. Abigail, how long is it took your to move around on 2 feet? Takes some time, right? And then to be able to feed yourself, a calf already knows what to go with. Okay, can still be fed by others, but the calf knows how to find food, whether it's from the mother or from the field, right? Not so human life, right? And what kind of value is there in those first years when you think about it? Not what the mother will give in the family life. I'm not talking about that. Just think about, like, God creates a world for us that there's no intelligence for the 3-year-old, real intelligence, like we're now using our intelligence. You can say, now this is purposeful. This is meaningful. Well, we didn't have that when we were 5 years old. Now, of course, we grow into that and slowly graduate, right? But what it's showing us that so much of our life in how we grew up is not so essential, not so, it was like a means to an end rather than truly an end in itself, like what we're engaged in now. And that's how we grow up into life, till you became, someone who finally uses your head and you study Torah and you exert yourself in the engagement, right, and so on, and in the service. But think about even now, how much of our day goes to things that are not really such a great end. You sleep 6 hours, 8 hours, and that's a third of your day. Then you spend time eating. Then you spend time, other things that you got to do that are not really the whole point, not really such a tachlis, such an end goal, merely a means. Interesting. Adam, when he was created, God created him at 20 years old. Hey, he was already a mensch. He had a brain. He could understand. He had a heart that he could feel the presence of God. But that's not the way it is now. Right? So if that's the case, if you think about this point, you're going to come to a conclusion that the way God set up the world, how much of your day is it really about something that is really in great value and great meaning? Much of the day is secondary things that are only like a means to an end, that seemingly are not a great value and an end in themselves, right? That's what you're going to think. On the other hand, says the Rebbe, that if you are, in other words, if we look at our lives, that's what it is, right? But on the other hand, we got to say that all the details of my life, they were set up this way, in this manner, by God Almighty. There must be every detail has value, has meaning. So even when I just go out for a leisurely walk, it must be integral. So we need to understand this idea. How do we get it? On one hand, it doesn't seem to be that way, right? When we kind of examine the duration of a whole life, right? From the early years to the, productive years, so to speak. And even now in our productive years, that we can really do great, amazing things. But how much of our day is really that? Again, sleep is, Now, of course, we understand we need all those things. We're not denying that, but what we're trying to understand, how is it that God creates the world in such a way? So it seems like there are only secondary, not so meaningful things. But on the other hand, we know that God creates everything for a purpose. So that means the 6 or 8 hours of sleep. That means the times I'm spending eating. That means the times I'm spending on a leisurely walk. All these things have to somehow tie in a purposeful, meaningful way. Is that clear? Oh my gosh. Didn't realize how long it took me all of this. To be continued. So to appreciate this, we're going to have to come back to learn more, God willing. And we're going to learn all about this from the Megillah. Any questions? Any comments? Yair, where are you, Yair? So, Sarah Malka and Aliyah.
Right here.
Yair. Please share with us. Yair is one of the integral people of Chabad Zichron Kadeshim, who is now in Minnesota or outside of the, somewhere in the state of Minnesota. What's the name of the place?
Chasko.
Chasco?
No, Chasko.
Whatever. Whatever it's called.
It is a whatever town either way.
I don't know. I didn't get it. And he's an integral part. And it's wonderful to see you a part here with us. I hope you'll join us again and more often.
I should. God willing, hopefully, whenever this pandemic is over.
God is willing. Now it's just a question if I'm willing.
True.
All right, my friend. Amazing to see you. So any comments, any questions, any thoughts? Anybody? All right, folks. Tomorrow.
Thank you, Rabbi Fine. That was amazing.
Thank you. Yes, to be continued. The amazing thoughts of Purim, and that Purim should be, just to leave you on this thought that I just mentioned this somewhere and I don't remember where. Maybe it was in, I don't know, it was in the Tanya. I don't remember where. But it's hard for me to believe that last year, Purim was the last time that many of us got together to celebrate. And it's going to be, just in 10 days that we will be without having the Purim party that we had last year and in all years. It is like just, wow, such joy that, gives you energy for a long time. And so it must be that we will be able to bring ourselves to a Purim that even though we were not going to be celebrating the way we've done in the past, that we still have to move forward. We still have to make it so meaningful and unbelievable that it's going to be full of joy and full of what can I say? Great joy. So hopefully through these teachings, it'll at least, prepare us and give us like, Purim's here and we got to, celebrate it in the utmost way. So God willing, we'll do that together. Looking forward. All right, folks. Thank you all. Sei gesund. See you tomorrow. Be well.
Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless you all.